All right, so gonna do a little fight prediction here for the fight coming up this weekend. Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Chris Arreola. I'm just gonna do on the main fight or whatever. Probably gonna be a good card, but I'm just gonna do the main fight here. Now, first of all, I want to say that I'm super excited for this fight for a number of reasons. The first being that I don't dislike either of these guys at all. Sometimes I like one guy and I don't like the other guy. I want to see one guy smash the other guy. Not that it always works out like that for you, but this is not the case in this fight. I like both of these guys. I was probably a bigger fan of Arreola in general because of just his will and his heart and stuff. The guy never ever quits. I'm not saying that Ruiz does. I'm just saying I've watched Arreola for longer and stuff like that. I was a little bit more invested in Arreola. And Ruiz kind of seemed to have thrown his opportunity away, which, listen, everyone's human, everyone makes mistakes. I'm trying to hate on the guy. I like Ruiz, and he seems to have rectified that. Seems to be having a great camp. I think he's down to, what did they say, 257 or 267 or something like that. I think it's 257. He was closer to like 290 in the Joshua rematch. So, listen, I hope that everything works out for him. I hope that he's rectified that problem and he's having a great camp and all that. And I'm happy for him. I would like to see him go forward with his career. He's definitely got skills, so he's got a promising future if he can, get that under control. Now, when you first hear about this fight, it doesn't seem like that great of a fight because in recent years, like Arreola, what I'm trying to say is that we've seen over time that like Arreola was built up to be, and I'm not saying that he was a hype job or whatever, but he was built up to be like the first Mexican heavyweight ever. And he would do what he had to do. He would beat this guy, he would beat this guy, he would beat that guy, and then he would fight. He would get there, he would get his title shot, and we were all like, "Oh, this is it. Is he gonna do it?" And then he would lose, and then it would be the same sequence of events over and over again. He'd beat a couple of guys, he'd get a title shot, he'd lose. He'd beat a couple of guys, he'd get a title shot, he'd lose. So it started to become kind of apparent that when Arreola gets in the ring with these really top tier guys, that he just isn't quite good enough to step up his level to that of the opposition when he gets to the really top guys in the division. So this one kind of seems a little bit like a mismatch. And while I do agree to a certain extent, this is still a must-watch fight for more than one reason. First of all, Mexican heavyweights are rare. Mexican heavyweight contenders and champions are obviously even more rare. And in this fight, we have two Mexican heavyweights. So we got two of the top Mexican heavyweights in the world. That alone should be enough to watch it. But on top of that, both guys are action-packed fighters with knockout power. People, it's weird to me because people knock some of the lower weight. It's like, oh, I want to see a slugfest, but then they get a slugfest in the lower weights, and they say, like, oh, these guys are, they're too small. I want to watch the big guys slug it out or whatever. And then you get a Klitschko fight or whatever the case is, and then they say, this is boring. I want to watch, whatever. So this right here is a perfect example of the opposite of that. These guys are literally the opposite of boring. And it's funny because the nicknames are the Nightmare and the Destroyer. And the Nightmare versus the Destroyer couldn't be any more fitting of an explanation for what's probably going to happen Saturday night. So I'm just saying, for all those people that want to see a rough, tough heavyweight fight, I would strongly suggest tuning into this fight. And all that being said, I really feel bad for Arreola in this fight. The guy has one of the biggest hearts in the sport. Comes forward, takes a lot of shots, never quits. I just think at 40, he's been through too many of these wars, and it's one of these examples where you got one of these guys that's proven himself, but he's kind of worn out, and then they feed him to somebody else that's kind of, it's almost like a passing of a torch. I'm not saying that that Arreola was like the king of the division or anything like that, but he's kind of going this way and he's being fed to this guy. And I just think that the timing of it is bad. Like, Ruiz beat himself on the scale to lose his belt, and now he seems to be really focused and in much, much better shape than his prior fights. And I fear Arreola might be the first to pay a price for that. But regardless of any of that, Arreola is going to come in ready for war, as always. Ruiz will probably have a rough night, not on points, but just physically. Like, I'm not saying, I don't mean that Ruiz is going to have a rough night where, I think Ruiz is going to get knocked out or whatever like that. I just think that, his nickname is the Nightmare. When you go in there, when you fight Arreola, he's not one of those guys that, you just have an easy night against. He comes to hurt you, and he's going to go in there ready for war, like I said. Now, I do think that Ruiz is going to get the win regardless, but I just, part of me almost hopes it's like a quick KO, because I really don't want to see Arreola just completely punished for, like, Arreola doesn't have the greatest defense. He does take a lot of shots. He's 40 years old. He's been in a lot of wars. Ruiz has quick hands, all that stuff. I don't want to see Arreola just get teed off on for 6 rounds and then stop late. So I hope both fighters come out okay after this fight, but I definitely predict a rough night. And to give you my final prediction is I'm predicting Andy Ruiz by stoppage, but I'm excited to see what Arreola can pull off at 40 and how this new and improved Ruiz looks after this camp with Eddie Reynoso and, losing however much weight he's lost, whatever it is, 30 pounds or something like that. So I'm personally hyped for the fight. Enjoy the main event. Enjoy the rest of the card. And Andy Ruiz by stoppage. Peace.